want to start and get your reaction to what we heard from the President of the United States about you last night. Listen to this.
Bill Barr can go down as the greatest attorney general in the history of our country, or he can go down as just another guy. It depends.
Is it appropriate for the President of the United States to be putting pressure on you in the way he clearly did?
I don't feel any pressure from that.
You don't think he's trying to pressure you into going forward with indictments and criminal charges and stuff like that?
No, that's, when we talk in private, he doesn't talk like that. So.
But is it appropriate for a President of the United States to be speaking like that publicly about the sitting attorney?
What do you think is inappropriate about what he said?
Well, let me play another clip. This is what he said 3 weeks ago or so, elaborating. Listen to this.
I hope they're not going to be politically correct, and I hope they do what? Because the fact is, this was President Obama knew everything. Vice President Biden, as dumb as he may be, he knew everything, and everybody else knew everything. They spied on my campaign, which is treason. They spied both before and after I won. Bill Barr can go down as the greatest attorney general in the history of our country, or he can go down as just an average guy. It depends on what's going to happen.
I see you smiling, but...
well, I sort of responded to that by saying that, if I was really concerned about being politically correct, I wouldn't have joined the administration. And also, I held a press conference and said that neither President Obama or Vice President Biden were under investigation.
But is it appropriate, though?
That's how I respond.
But is it appropriate, and you've worked for another president, President George H.W. Bush, is it appropriate for a president to be urging you to launch criminal investigations against his political opponents?
Well, I didn't take that as launching a criminal investigation. We're reviewing the Russiagate thing, and I think he's interested in the results of it. But I didn't think it was appropriate for either Vice President Biden or Kamala Harris to call for the charging of a police officer before that matter is reviewed and all the facts are in.
You and the president were there yesterday. The city is clearly struggling in the aftermath of what happened to Jacob Blake, who was shot 7 times in the back by a police officer. Neither you nor the president had a chance to meet with him, or his family, for that matter. What would be your message to them?
To who?
To the Blake family.
I guess my message to them would be what it would be to all Americans, which is in cases where it's possible or there's concern over excessive force, we have a process in this country to make that determination. And it involves initially the state looking at it and also the federal government. And we are investigating it. And that should follow due process and be fair to everybody, including the police officer. And violence is not appropriate. Our justice system has to respond to analysis, reasoned analysis, not mob violence.
So you testified that you think you understand the conversations, this is when you were testifying before Congress, that black parents have with their children about racism in this country. How do you think African-American parents around the country explain to their kids what exactly happened to Jacob Blake, for example, and why that police officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about the Blake case.
Why not?
Because I think it's different than the Floyd case.
What's different?
Well, Floyd was already subdued, incapacitated, in handcuffs, and was not armed. In the Jacob case, he was in the midst of committing a felony, and he was armed. Now, I did say that I do think that there appears to be a phenomenon in the country where African Americans feel that they're treated, when they're stopped by police frequently, as suspects before they're treated as citizens. I don't think that necessarily reflects some deep-seated racism in police departments or in most police officers. I think the same kind of behavior is done by African-American police officers. I think there are stereotypes. I think people operate very frequently according to stereotypes, and I think it takes extra precaution on the part of law enforcement to make sure we don't reduce people to stereotypes. We treat them as individuals.
Justice systems here in the United States.
No, I don't think they're two justice systems. I think the narrative that that the police are, epidemic of shooting unarmed black men is simply a false narrative, and also the narrative that that's based on race. The fact of the matter is it's very rare for an unarmed African American to be shot by a white police officer. There were 10 cases last year. 6 of them, the suspect was attacking the police officer physically. So these are rare things compared to the 7,000 to 8,000 young black men who are killed every year.
Because you've said you don't believe there's systemic racism in the justice in our justice system among the police, but you did say this. You did say, I do think it is a widespread phenomenon that African American males in particular are treated with extra suspicion and maybe not given the benefit of the doubt.
That's what I just said.
But doesn't that sound like systemic racism?
No, to me the word systemic means that it's built into the institution. And I don't think that's true. I think our institutions have been reformed in the past 60 years, and if anything has been built in, it's a bias to non-discrimination and safeguards against that. And so that's what I'm reacting to on systemic. And also I think we have to be a little careful about throwing the idea of racism around. Racism usually means, that I believe that because of your race, you're a lesser human being than me. And I think there are people in the United States that feel that way, but I don't think it is as common as people suggest. And I think we have safeguards to ensure that it doesn't really have an effect to someone's future. I think we've made a lot of progress in the past 60 years. To listen to the American left nowadays, you'd think we've gotten nowhere after all.
There's no doubt there's been a lot of progress, but do you think black people are treated differently by law enforcement than white people?
I think there are some situations where statistics which suggest that they are treated differently, but I don't think that that's necessarily racism. Well, like, didn't Jesse Jackson say that when he looks behind him and he sees a group of young black males walking behind him, he's more scared than when he sees a group of white youths walking behind him? Does that make him a racist? Did that make him a racist?
But it sounds like there are two systems, one for blacks, one for whites. That sounds like there's still racism in the justice system.
Well, no, I think we have to make sure that stereotypes do not govern our actions in the justice system, and I think police departments do a pretty good job of trying to police against that. And I think there's more progress that can be made and more reform, and we're going about that. But the demonization of the police and the idea that this is so widespread and epidemic is simply wrong.